I'm asking for your vote to be the next Greens MP for New South Wales. I've got the policy, the campaign and the political experience to do this job. We face unprecedented environmental challenges in the future. Climate change, the destruction of habitat on a massive scale, unsustainable resource extraction and consumption are destroying those things that we rely on to survive. Clean air, clean water and healthy soils. At the same time, inequality is growing. Economic security, housing stability, these things are falling. We are selling off essential services and it's done at the expense of those people who need it most. The Greens are essential for Australian politics if we are to create that vision of a fairer society and a more sustainable world. For those of you that don't know me, I grew up in central Queensland. I spent time on a small pawpaw and mango farm. I've been in the Greens for 8 years now. I'm a member of the Shoalhaven Greens and I split my time between Sydney and the South Coast. I'm married and Melissa and we recently welcomed our first child into the world, a young son, Banjo. I'm a hard worker. I've spent the last 6 years as a political organiser, community organiser, campaigner and policy advisor, working on issues as diverse as education and health, energy, climate change, political donations reform, voluntary euthanasia and marine environment issues. I've been an advisor to 4 Greens MPs in the past, John Kay, Kate Fairman, Jeremy Buckingham and Tamara Smith. I helped establish and wrote the original strategy for Lock the Gate. From right at the beginning, we brought together farmers and environmentalists. I'm really proud of the work of Greens activists and the Greens in Parliament in championing community outcomes, amplifying community campaigns to win positive outcomes. I was in Kate Fairman's office when we discovered plans to drill for coal seam gas at St Peters. And we kicked off that campaign that has led to those licences now being revoked across the entire Sydney Basin. I stood with the community at Glenugie and Doubtful Creek and Bentley, and together we made political history in Ballina, winning that seat for the Greens off the Nationals for the first time. I was pre-selected to be your Greens upper house candidate at the last state election, and I know how hard so many of you worked to try to win that position for the Greens. I was really proud to represent the broader Greens platform in that campaign. I got to debate Scott Morrison on Australia's asylum seeker policy. I was really proud to stand in farmers' forums standing up for animal welfare issues, and I stood with local campaigns and candidates as we advocated for greater investment in our public schools and in public health. I want Banjo to be able to enjoy the ocean as I have, to be able to swim with wondrous creatures and not just with plastic, to be able to trek through old-growth forests and to get a great education at well-resourced public schools just as I did. If we are to create a vision of a fairer society and a more sustainable world, the Greens are essential for that project. Whether I'm campaigning for environmental issues or social issues, I'm motivated by justice, by intergenerational equity and the opportunity of this generation, Banjos and the ones after that, the opportunity for them to live in a free and fair, healthy world. I'm asking for your vote to be the next Greens MP. This is an important project that we all share, and I want to be part of taking that project forward in the New South Wales Parliament. Thanks again for being here today. Thank you to those watching online, and if you're on Facebook, feel free to write some questions down and I'll get to them as soon as I get out of here. Thanks very much. Look, I want to take you through my thinking about this to start with. You know, I've been in some forums where we've had protesters outside, and sometimes it's not so useful to go and engage with them at the time, particularly if they're targeting us for reasons to create their own promotion. And look, the Animal Justice Party and animal welfare groups have been very focused on the Greens in recent times. They see the Greens base as a base that they can go after, and I understand that. We did that to Labor as well. I can understand their motivations there. The AJP particularly targeted us in the federal election. I don't think it was particularly successful, but as you know, they did win that seat in the New South Wales upper house, really at expense of the Greens. You know, and at the end of the day, our policies and our work in the Parliament and the community has done probably more for animal justice and animal rights than any other party active in Australia's parliaments today. We have a very good policy. We don't support those things that this scenario says that those groups outside say that we support. That makes sense. We're also not a vegetarian party. That's not in our policies, and I support that. I support sustainable agriculture more broadly. I'm a real foodie. I've just come from the markets. You know, I spend a lot of time cooking, you know, whole foods, rich food. Some of that involves meat, but I accept, I think the party accepts, it's in our policy certainly, that we should be reducing that consumption, both in the interest of the climate, animal welfare, and the health of the public generally. So, what would I say if I did go out? Well, I would talk about the Greens' strong record. We have championed in our parliaments time and time again animal welfare issues. We do not support intensive animal agriculture. We have championed legislation and motions in the Parliament to end debeaking, to end sow stalls, to end intensive agriculture, and our policy is really clear on that, so it's just not true. Not all meat production is unsustainable, and I'd be prepared to argue the case on that. At the end of the day, we need sustainable food production of all sorts. Intensive grain production, intensive horticulture can be just as damaging. It clears massive tracts of land. It rediverts water away from our natural rivers and wetlands. And of course, it has a climate impact because of the energy that goes into the production of that food and the transportation of that food. The reality is, to the protesters, we share more. We have more in common in this cause, and we should be working together more actively in the community and in the Parliament against the old parties who have not taken many steps at all to address these critical problems. So that's my pitch. I'm not sure I'd be successful, but I'd be wanting to start that conversation there and take it offline, because I do think that there's a need for us to work together. It's a very significant social movement in Australia at the moment, and rightfully so. Our animal welfare practices in this country have been horrendous. And we've seen just how much support there was for Mike Baird's recent decision on greyhounds. That movement's only getting stronger, and we've been at the front of it, and we should continue it. Thanks. So I think some of the detail and the background to the conversation that happened, and it was on my Facebook page, you can go and have a look at it. But I support the delivery of essential public services generally, by public institutions. Absolutely, without a doubt, and that's what I support. It's the Greens policy, and we've championed that for a long time. I've been involved in campaigns championing that for a long time. But we've also had some complex debates in the party, and we have to acknowledge, particularly around the NDIS recently and the delivery of some of those services, and also the delivery of out-of-home care services. There are some places, particularly regional communities, where access to government services are limited, maybe because of the number of people who need those services. And I think there is a need, and the Greens recognise this in our policy too, for a degree of flexibility to work with, allow NGOs, not-for-profit social enterprises to fill some of those gaps. Now, maybe ideally those services would all be delivered by government, but we also support decisions being taken at the closest possible level to those people that it affects. So some of those times, some of those things, some of those local transport needs, local service needs might be delivered by local government. They might be delivered by NGOs recognising a gap and making a pitch to local government or to state government to deliver those services. I think we need to make sure that the services people need get delivered, and Greens policy, I think, reflects that. And so that's a little bit of an elaboration on the conversation, but you can go and have a look at the full conversation on Facebook. Well, I worked for John for 18 months. It was sort of my first real experience in the Greens. So I worked on education issues a lot in John's office, and I guess relationships have stemmed from there. But we shouldn't assume that the person who fills this spot becomes the education portfolio holder for the party. And also, you know, John's record stands on its own, but John became an expert in education after he got involved in the Greens as an MP. I don't think I was an expert on coal seam gas before I started working on those issues. And I think that I've got the capacity, the intellect, the drive to take on any portfolio issue, really reach out to the stakeholders that are going to be critical for campaigning. But I'm a strategist at the end of the day. So whatever job that the Greens membership and the party room see fit to give me if I'm successful, I will sit down, I'll work out a strategy, I'll engage with stakeholders, I'll look at the work we've previously done, I'll look at the members who are engaged in that activity, and we'll work out the best way forward. I know it is going to take a lot to change the direction of education policy in New South Wales and the constant attacks to our TAFE system and to public funding. And I'm really supportive of the Greens policy that wants to redirect funding from private system into the public system. It's absolutely necessary. But I think my record of campaigning and winning campaigns sets me up to be able to take on any campaign that the party wants to give me. Well, the Greens, I guess I'll use my experience in the coal seam gas space, first of all. Greens members and activists have been really involved, but one of the critical things that's happened is we've championed community voices. So Greens activists connected to Jeremy Buckingham's office primarily, but Kate Fairman before that and Lee Rhiannon before that were working on some core environmental campaigns, and coal seam gas was part of that. And over that sort of evolution of that campaign, you've seen through the work of the relationships that we've built, us fostering community voices, training them in, putting out media releases, speaking in public events, helping them to coordinate public events. It has grown a massive social movement across New South Wales primarily, but it's extended into Queensland and Victoria, and so much of that has been the work of the Greens. The production of materials, we've sort of gone out in the media first on every issue and really given guidance to the community movement, to others working, how to respond to issues that are happening. We're on the front foot all the time. I don't think that without the Greens party, the members and the MPs taking action, it would be as strong as it is today. And the other wonderful thing about it is that it's really generated some change in politics. Now the major parties are scared of the way the Greens are working with unconventional alliances, how we've built relationships in regional communities in particular. They've seen how politically potent it can be. So I think that's a really good model. I think we should digest that model a little bit more and see how we can apply that in other spaces. Look, I would, but it's a decision that the membership have to make. And I think the MPs play a certain role in policy development within the party, but broadly the membership should decide those things. I think it's very easy to draw a connection between the two. The animal welfare impacts, there's similarities. The impact, the deaths that are caused to racehorses that are deemed to be not suitable, you can draw similar conclusions between the two. It's a much harder campaign. It's a much bigger industry. I've worked with some of these people really closely on the coal campaign in particular up in the Hunter Valley, which is the home of the thoroughbred breeding industry. And we've had some pretty heated conversations about where the Greens' position is on animal welfare and the racing industry. It'll be a tough one. I think the Greens should take it on. And I think every time Melbourne Cup Day comes around, you see just how the campaign of opposition to the cruelty, to the absurd wastage, to the gambling impacts, all of those things, you are seeing the community really react more strongly year in, year out. The Greens have led the charge on greyhounds, we're leading the charge on horse racing, rodeos, other use of animals, and I think we should change our policy. I think the community's right for that change as well. That is a good question. And look, all of our MPs are fundamentally supported by the work of the MPs that have gone in the past, the membership that do all the work in policy development and informing our work through working groups. I've worked for a number of MPs over a number of years. I've seen just how detailed that engagement is with the membership. Accountability is pretty broad in this party. There's one-on-one relationships, there's MP to group, local group relationships, working group relationships. They turn up at SDCs. But I think at the end of the day, someone has to go out and sell our message to the public. Now, I think I can do that. I've got the experience, the political gut, the networks, particularly within the environment movement at the moment, but I'll expand them where I need to. But I think I've got those skills to go out and sell our message. I can't do it though without the membership continuing to be engaged, because at the end of the day, our MPs are only as strong as those people out there working in community groups to advocate as well. So we're all in this together, but I hope you can see that I've got the skills to be able to go out and put those messages firmly out into the public space and champion that vision that we share. Well, look, I'd have to say a bit more of the same. It was only, don't quote me on this, but 15 years ago that we were getting single-digit figures in Marrickville, I guess. We are the only party that's seen sort of that long-term sustainable growth. And I know we cop a bit of criticism in the media. A lot of people want to talk about us plateauing, but when you delve down and the questioner there's actually quite a lot of growth out there for the Greens, growth of Greens support. We're expanding into new areas. More of the same. So where has that come from? And I talked before about digesting some of the reason behind the success of the coal seam gas campaign and how that's translated into political outcomes. But some of the things that I think we should be looking at between now and 2019. The coal and gas movement is changing. Economics of energy policy means that those greenfield developments are unlikely to happen whether we're there or not. We need to move with the community movement that is driving really hard for renewable energy. We need to be championing a statewide RET, really driving the bad government. We have the worst record in New South Wales when it comes to renewable energy development. I think there's a great opportunity there. The community want a vision for a better society, a fairer society. Jan Barham's introduced a wellbeing indicators bill into Parliament. It's a fantastic idea. It is a way to measure, to challenge the government on how our services are being delivered, that deliver more than just economic growth and property prices. This is about how people live, their access to services, how we care for people in need, where are our kids at on the education standard, how much clean air, clean water, all those things are getting measured. We're looking at ourselves critically as a society, and we're measuring ourselves against how we feel, how well we are, how we treat each other. I think that's the sort of vision the Greens could champion. And there's some ideas. I wrote a piece about this a couple of days ago. It's on my Facebook page. About 6 different ideas for the next few years for the Greens, how we can build those sort of that into that next areas of success for the party. I think requires some of that visionary thinking. Look, at the end of the day, the job of the MPs is to deliver on the policies of the party. I like the idea of us having a multi-party system in all levels of government in Australia. I think we can get better outcomes. I think the Gillard Greens government of the time showed a fantastic capacity to negotiate and get good outcomes. We've seen some of that erode in the last period of government, but we're heading back to an era, I think, of multi-party governments where some of these, I know it is hard to take for some people, but at the end of the day, if we can work with someone to get what we see as a progressive outcome, I think we should. In the last federal parliament, we've done that on a couple of issues, fuel excise being one of them. We worked on Senate voting reform, cleaning up democracy. We did that in New South Wales as well. We banned corporate and organisational donations. High Court saw different to that, but we took the step to work with the government of the day to achieve that. I think we've got a responsibility to do that. I think our members and our voters want us to get outcomes in the parliament. And, I think we should be prepared and not scared of putting forward why we choose to work with people we might see as our opponents in Parliament to do that. Thanks again, everyone, for the opportunity.